are. Joining us on the program right now is Representative Dan Meuser from Pennsylvania's 9th District. How you doing, sir?
Great, Andrew. Great to be with you.
I just had your colleague, Representative Byron Donalds, in the last segment. We were talking about Biden's spending proposals. We were talking about the spending as it relates, and we added in some transportation stuff. But I'm going to pick this up with you. It seems like the Democrats know they cannot continue this lockdown in perpetuity, but they want to, at least as the spending goes.
Yeah, they seem to want the control, and let's face it, that's what funding creates. And yes, Byron Donald's a great new member, and we're working together on a number of things. Look, this whole situation you were just talking about with teachers, you have a lot of good teachers out there. Let's face it, at least 50%, hopefully more. But the teacher unions this is all about control. And you know what? I mean, I'd like to see a students' union. I'd like to see the students represented as opposed to the teachers only being represented, as well as how about the parents? I mean, this is one of the reasons as well. I mean, the unemployment compensation supplement being continued, but one of the problems that we have in Pennsylvania is because the school stays closed and they're just randomly hybrid, randomly in person. Many people can't work steady jobs and be physically present because of that. So it's really unbelievably disruptive, hurting those who they pretend to be helping. And you know what? That's the rationalization of liberalism.
Well, this is one of the things I always point out about taking services out of a competitive market and making it a government product. Now you don't have a choice, right? The majority of parents in this country cannot say, all right, well, I guess we're just going to go to the private education system. In some parts of the country, there may only be one or two options. There's not a fluid option for millions of people. We're stuck with the government's offer here, the government-run education system, and the teachers union are the most powerful element to that.
Well, it certainly is a case study supporting school choice. I know many in suburbs, in the cities, in the rural communities that now appreciate the idea of school choice. They can't be held over a barrel like this. And what's even worse, even in my district, where for the most part I think we have some very reasonable and great people, but we could have one school district open, as in the students are attending, and then the adjacent school district had maybe 5 days up until mid-March that were open. So it's random. It's only hurting the students. It's setting them back, and certainly in a lot of our cities where the education, frankly, is even that much more important. It's important everywhere, of course, but those again who the liberals say they're trying to help most are the ones hurting the most. And it just falls right into line with, frankly, everything that's being done since day one of the Biden administration. They're liberal policies, and then they try to fix them with more liberal policies, from the border to a so-called rescue plan that had very little rescue in it. That's why it's called bait and switch, to a so-called transportation infrastructure bill with very little transportation infrastructure in it. And, these are the things that the American people have got to understand. These guys put a nice name on something, but that's not where their focus is or what their goals are. The goals aren't to rebuild, modernize, and make American cities and highways modernized. The goal is to implement Green New Deal plans and change society in following the left-wing agenda that they have.
I don't get it. If we don't send the kids back to school, how do they plan to push critical race theory, right? I mean, there's a lot of doublethink here. We pay an enormous amount of taxes for government-run education, but we're not getting the full service. That's an issue right there. But what is the point of this? Look, when it comes to the vaccine, I have said every time on this program the topic has come up, if you want to take the vaccine, take it without shame. If you don't want to take the vaccine, don't take it. Don't take it without shame. There should be no shame here. But at the same time, if the government is telling us that the best way to get up and running again is to take the vaccine, what is the point if they're going to stay in lockdown mode?
Yeah, you said it. I mean, it's incredible. There's no incentive from that standpoint, and then go out and get yourself vaccinated, and we get herd immunity and all the so-called scientific terms that we've heard, where most of them are really political science. It is part of an agenda. It is part of control, and certainly at this point, it's hard to believe. Or let's just put it this way, though. The continued shutdown, the continued idea of the shutdown, where some states are safe, smart, and open, but the continued idea is the rationalization for these continued huge spending bills, such as a rescue plan that had 6% towards defeating the virus, and that's how it was sold. A transportation infrastructure bill of $2.3 trillion that has very little of what we consider to be transportation infrastructure. So they're using it as a rationalization, and you could argue perhaps the same thing at the border. Creating, like in the issue, creating the level of disorder to expand or defund certain things that fits their agenda.
I want to move over to the border, and I'll spare you the audio. I was playing some TED Talk stuff, which I've said is the sort of the comedy club practice ground for a lot of left wing thinking. And there was an activist who was saying, "Well, we got to flip the discussion here. We can't be talking about the laws of the destination nations. We need to be talking about the rights of the migrants." And I thought that was kind of interesting because Joe Biden said in his joint session that no amendment is absolute. I guess that includes the Bill of Rights. So here's my question for Democrats. How could millions of people around the world have a right to make an asylum claim in the United States? That's something that's inalienable. We can't stop them from doing it. Even though when they cite the 1951 Convention on Refugees, they clearly define refugees, and that is not befitting of the people that are coming here from Central America. There's no partisan revolutionary wars going on where people are being shot in the streets or being in the wrong party. There's no ethnic cleansing that we know of. I mean, Guatemala's a democracy. So is Honduras. I mean, they have elections. I don't know if they're free and fair. They're probably not. But they do not have, when they compare it to the Jews fleeing the Holocaust, that was their government killing their own citizens, right? I mean, Jews fought for Germany in World War I to find themselves on the other side of the final solution. That's not happening in Central America. But how can American rights, the rights of a citizen in our republic, be malleable, but the rights of the non-citizen in a foreign land be inalienable? How could that possibly be?
Yeah. Well, we take an oath, right, to protect and defend. And that is not what is taking place. They have no idea who is coming across the border. The numbers are in the hundreds of thousands. This idea of minors, unaccompanied minors being able to come across are all due to a policy change by the Biden administration. I was there 4 weeks ago. I saw the level of drugs coming through, how the cartels are in charge, how they're charging for the human trafficking. It's outrageous, and it can be corrected. And so you have to say, okay, why then are the policy changes made? Is it just to reverse whatever President Trump did, or is there a further agenda here? And that is to keep the issue going as long as possible, bring these aliens in, illegal immigrants, and make voters out of them through H.R. 1. Now, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but that's not too far of a stretch as to why Vice President Harris, why Joe Biden won't even go to the border. All right, they don't want to see it. They don't have to come back and say, "This is what I saw." I was there. I was there with Democrats. We all saw and heard the same thing from CBP. This is a disaster that can be fixed, and the Biden administration is the cause of it.
But let me say this. They keep saying that these people have a right to cross our border and file their claims. But they've never told us how many people, what the qualifications are. Gallup put out a poll saying 42 million would like to come from Central and South America. I mean, if we were to bring in, let's say 25 million people, let's cut that in half, make it 12.5 million people, all with the right to file an asylum claim. How long would it take to satisfy all those claims before they ever see a judge? A year? 2 years? I don't believe for a second that the Democrats would say at the end of that, okay, all of these claims have been satisfied. Very few of these people actually qualify, so we're going to send them all back now.
Right. Poverty is not a reason for asylum, as you well know. Right? There's got to be suffering. There's got to be danger. And what's happening now? That those who come in seeking asylum, and it's by the tens of thousands, they do, as you said, get a court date a year and a half down the line. Tell us what city you're going to be in. Now, the interesting thing is 60% of them do show up. But what they don't tell you is if they get denied during the hearing, they get 24 or 48 hours to collect their things and get ready to be deported. And nearly 99% of those disappear. So it's our asylum rules and laws they're not laws because, Biden overcame them with an executive order. It's a regulation are completely inadequate. And they're basically a joke. And when the Biden administration sends messages to Central America and Mexico that this is how we're going to handle things, it's going to be catch and release, folks, that's what draws them in. And the only one that's happy about that, perhaps the left wing of the Democrat Party, but are the cartels and the mules and the drug dealers and the human traffickers.
Let me put this all together. They keep talking about this American Families Plan. They should be calling it the Central American Families Plan. Biden has this. We have the Green New Deal, which the math is not there. The idea that you're going to power 90% of the United States with turbines and solar panels, there's not enough land unless we eliminate, every mountain, every farm, every forest, every Native American, tract. It's just not there. If you look at what it takes to put up one of these industrial grade turbines, they need a square mile between one another, not to mention the thousands of pounds of concrete that have to be dug deep in to secure the base for these turbines and the travel. The energy can't go from Iowa to New York City. The consumer can't be in New York City if the turbines and energy creation is in Iowa. So the math is not there. Adding in to all this high-speed rail Biden is now talking about, Amtrak has never made a profit in its history. So now they want the government to carve up the United States into government-run energy, government-run rail. What's going to be left for the states and the towns and the counties? I have no idea. But if we are right now experiencing millions of people still out of work, millions of kids not going to school, businesses are still shut down. In some states they're open. Yes, Florida, Texas, California, New York are going to start opening soon. Where is the support and resources for all of these people that are coming across the border when we don't have enough to go around for our own citizens?
Yeah. Well, once again, liberalism is proving that the only way you could sell it is by making it out to be something that it isn't, and rationalization. And, of course, the quote of the great Ronald Reagan that government is not does not solve the problems. Government is the problem. The subsidizing of wind turbines is a scam, frankly. Wind turbines are, people like to say everything above and everything below, and I can get on board with that. I'm fine with solar. I'm fine with clean energies. I'm fine with economically feasible reductions in carbon, of course. But wind turbines, you wouldn't believe, if you ever read the data as I have, the level of environmental harm that takes place.
Yes, we have. I did a whole episode on Blaze TV about it.
Terrible return on investment from them. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have something. I did an entire episode on my Blaze TV program about this, about the amount of concrete that is required to secure the base. The fact that you need a mile space so they don't literally shatter one another with turbulence. The fact that they only actually produce energy when the conditions for the wind to turn the turbine are perfect. I mean, and when you look at, unless we're going to start blasting mountain ranges, which I know we have done to create rail lines and roadways, but that's a little sliver, right? That's a scalpel. This would be literally a 400-pound hammer of smashing the country flat to make solar farms and wind farms. And again, those technologies are inefficient. There's no conceivable way to power a city like New York unless you dozed every suburb around it.
I know. And how about $270 billion for charging of electric vehicles, where they make up 3% today, and they tend to be more expensive. So those in lower incomes that are paying taxes are going to subsidize those who want their electric cars to be able to go 240 miles on a charge. So, and I don't remember when Henry Ford was making his gasoline cars that the government stepped in and built all the gas stations. I mean, these things come from demand. Think how much government would screw
That's a good point.
Where to place
That's a really good point, sir. That's a really good point that the government didn't create the gas station. Thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, well, right, and it's all of this, and you can guarantee that it will be screwed up. Right? They will not know. They won't do the math. They won't do the demographics on where the best place to put it is, because it's not their money on the line. That's what drives the private sector. And along with this, everything that they're trying to do with increased taxes and somehow or another that gains them moral high ground, it really doesn't take a genius to spend heavy and tax heavy. That's not exactly a new original idea. But by doing that, we well know, and your listeners know, any tax dampens the private sector, i.e. our economy, i.e. where the revenues get generated in the first place for schools and everything else. So what liberalism really does is it kills the golden goose. And that's why it doesn't work, and that's why it is digressive. And that's why we need the American people to understand which side of this they need to be on.
All right, I got to leave it there. Representative Dan Meuser, Pennsylvania's 9th District, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, I really appreciate it, Andrew. Thanks.